Sorry about that, everybody. This is going to be part two of the Bears Week 15 video. Looking ahead at the game against the Eagles. We got cut off there. Went a little too long on the Google Meet session. So where I left off was I was talking about the difference in value from second pick overall, third pick overall to sixth, seventh pick overall. I think it's substantial. I'm in agreement with Jack, disagreement with Bohemian Sharp, because I think of it as if you're at the number two pick, obviously outside of Houston, who's probably going to take a quarterback. If somebody falls in love with one of the other two quarterbacks, they can maybe offer you a deal you cannot turn down. If you're at the sixth pick, you can maybe pick up another pick, but it's not going to be anywhere near the trade package that you would get if you were at number two. Also, on the flip side, if somebody doesn't knock your socks off, it allows you to get a game changer, especially probably in our defensive front seven, which all of us know that we need game changers in the front seven. And it's one of those years where if you stay put because you don't get your socks knocked off by an offer, you do have the chance to pick the best player that you think is available on the defense. And you don't get that chance very often. So it's a super valuable pick if they end up second or third overall. It's still a good pick if they're fifth, sixth, seventh, but there is a substantial difference. I'm in agreement with Jack. And I would like to see the Bears lose out, in all honesty. I'd like to see them remain competitive. I'd like to see them remain professional. I don't think it's a knock against them if they lose out because they have zero talent in the front seven. Like they're playing four good teams. They could give up 35 points a game. And if the offense is just still staying competitive, those aren't necessarily bad losses. Like, it sucks that you'll end the season on a 10-game losing streak or whatever it is. But if they're staying competitive, staying professional, I think overall that's the best possible outcome for the Bears long term, whether it's getting a huge stockpile of draft picks and having the potential to, over a year or two or three, depending on how far they're spaced out, totally rebuild your roster, similar to what the Lions did when they gave up Stafford, right? And we're seeing how that's playing off. Or if you don't get that, and nobody falls in love with one of these quarterbacks, you take a true game changer. They're comparing this Will Anderson guy to Khalil Mack. I don't know if I buy that. This Jalen Carter guy's a freak. You take one of them, your front seven immediately hopefully has a young stud. Jack.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah, no, I agree almost wholeheartedly. I think that it's one of those things when you're up that high, like you said, it's just the value you can get back is so drastically different. And, I've come around even to, initially it was like, the obvious, trade back to Detroit, even though it's into the division. They got 2 first-round picks, trade back with Seattle. They might have 2 first-round picks, but the Broncos are so bad that Seattle technically has that second pick ahead of the Bears right now. I think maybe Denver finds a win somewhere. Maybe. I don't know. They've been so bad. It's hard to be that confident in it. And who knows what they're going to do with Geno from a quarterback situation themselves anyway. But now I'm starting to kind of think like, maybe you look at a team like Carolina, who's probably going to be in that, like, I guess they're kind of making a push, but if they're in that 10 to 12 window, and if you can get like the 10th overall pick and DJ Moore, like, and a second rounder, like, there's some value. There's just a lot of things you can do if you're that high up that I don't think you can do if you're not.
I'm going to make a bold claim here. And I know both of you guys are going to disagree with me, and everybody in the world is going to disagree with me. I don't think wide receiver is a problem position for the Bears right now.
I don't either.
I think it's a luxury pick position that when you actually get good, you try to find that guy. I don't think right now forcing wide receiver makes a whole lot of sense. But
I don't think you're crazy. But the only pushback I would have is, take Mahomes out of the conversation. I think he's just head and shoulders above everybody. He's clear, if you will, as soccer fans like to say. This guy's clear. Mahomes is clear, but if you look at everyone else, Josh Allen, took that next
Diggs.
step once he got a Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
We're seeing Jalen Hurts take that next step
AJ Brown.
once he got a AJ Brown.
You're right.
We're seeing that stuff. But I don't disagree with your sentiment that at the end of the day, like so much more is more important than that. And until you're ready to win, I think you might not need that guy. So I agree. And technically, Poles already made the bet he has to lie in.
Claypool.
He traded
Yeah.
what's going to end up being like the second or third pick in the second round, the earliest of the second round pick possible for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So that's like drafting a wide receiver
It
that
is.
early already. So he's got to lie in that. Hopefully Claypool works out. But what I was getting at about, where you need more before, I think I agree with what you're saying, where that wide receiver will truly be the difference maker. And I do kind of agree with the 1 point Zach made about why he is not 100% in on just lose the rest of the games this year. Because I do think there is a little bit of value. I think a lot of guys who have played the game, a lot of ex-NFL players and just ex-athletes in general will tell you that it takes time to kind of learn how to win as a
For
team,
sure.
as an organization, and there's value to that. But where I will push back a little bit is that as much as I love to be optimistic and there's nothing more I want than to see the Bears compete for a Super Bowl, it's not going to be next year that they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Next year, I think, is the year that they have some time to learn how to win. I think next year is the year that you push for, maybe a wild card playoff spot. The division kind of sucks. I don't think Minnesota's that great. Lions are getting better. Packers probably on the slide. Who knows if Rodgers retires? Who knows what that team looks like going forward? So maybe they're division winners and they're in that playoff firmly. But I don't necessarily think they're going to go from the second or third top 5 type overall pick to the Super Bowl. So I think that next year they do still have time to kind of do what you were talking about in Bohemia over there, just referencing that they kind of need to learn to win. And I think that they can do that next year. But I don't want to completely, even though I disagree with you in the sense that I don't want to win, I do understand what you're saying about the value of learning how to do so.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of you guys. I've kind of been thrown to a crucible this week. I had my favorite guy, Dave Wanstead, talking about this earlier in the week about winning some football games late in the season, and Tony Dungy compounded on top of that. And the problem with me is that if Dave Wanstead tells me to walk a mile or all the way to Cleveland to like better my life, I'm gonna walk to Pittsburgh and like do him 2-0 because like the guy's just the greatest things in sliced bread. But yeah, I'm not going to be unhappy if we end up with this second or third pick, but I really want to win some football games, and I'm not going to be upset with what outcome is of winning football games, but I will also not like very similar situation. Justin Fields, like I am very happy he's on our football team. I'm not sold on the guy right now, and I'm not getting any Justin Fields tattoos on my ass anytime soon. But I'm definitely very happy with his performance so far, and happy to have him on board. But I really hope we get Will Anderson as a roll tide guy. I'd really like Will Anderson on his football team. The guy at Georgia, Carter's pretty good too, and I would not be unhappy with that. But I like Jack's little thing about trading back, getting some. Poles has proven a couple times so far that he's been able to get some decent capital for positions and move around, and I think that we're going to be very happy with what he does in comparison to Ryan Pace. Yeah, that's what I got on that.
Yeah, no, I like just the general idea of trading back as opposed to trading up, which is all Pace ever did. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if what we understood about Poles going into the start of the season, last offseason, that he values the lines and the trenches, me as a meathead idiot Chicago Bears fans loves to hear that. I would love to see, our defensive and offensive line really be the strong suits of our team over the future. So I think this offseason, I think we're going to see a lot of change, especially in the front seven. And who knows? I mean, I think it's going to be such a fun offseason. This week, when it comes to the Eagles, I think it's got the potential to be an ugly game. I think the Eagles are one of the most well-rounded teams. I think the Eagles have the chance of blowing out anybody. I don't see how our defense stops them. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a competitive game. I just want to see that offense do well more than anything. I got no faith in this defense the rest of the year until they do some things to give them some guys in that front seven.
Yeah, I do want to touch on one thing too. No one's brought it up yet. Some reports came out this week that Roquan Smith is in the media about Ryan Poles and how he conducted himself in their discussions, and called Ryan Poles a liar in some bases, and kind of just held Ryan Poles' feet to the fire in the media when he's already in Baltimore and joined a probably playoff team this year. It's going to have a chance of going deep. And I'm not really happy with how it went down, because I think that all these problems are avoided if that fucking knucklehead just gets himself an agent and doesn't talk to the general manager himself. He should not be doing all this stuff himself. And the guy's fairly new in the league and is just, there are conversations that should not be had with him, I think. And I'm not really pleased about the image that got some knucklehead guys in Chicago radio a little bit and stuff like that, and holding Ryan Poles. I haven't seen anything yet that's made me alarmed about Ryan Poles in any frame of mind, and I don't personally like the Roquan Smith and some people taking the situation and making Ryan Poles out to be the bad guy, because I do not think he is in this situation. But I want to bring that up as well.
I got two concerns about Ryan Poles.
Yeah,
love to hear him, because I have none yet.
Real quick, are they related to that story or no? Because I want to comment on that
Unrelated.
Story
Unrelated.
Okay, so related to what you were just saying, I haven't read to be fair to Roquan and whoever did the interview, I haven't read the story or the interview, so I don't know exactly what excerpts are out there or what's just kind of headline type quotes and things like that. I haven't dived into it entirely to know exactly what he said. With that sort of, out there, I do kind of question it in the sense of like, when was that conversation? Did he tell you that when he came in and he was operating under the assumption that you were going to negotiate in good faith, not demand to be the highest paid linebacker of all time, even though you play middle linebacker in a defense that doesn't even use a middle linebacker? I just don't know the context of that conversation, let alone if he even is telling the truth. I have no reason to say that Roquan's, a liar or a bad person or any of that, but I do have a little reason to believe that he likes attention, considering the way that he sort of ended the summer with the holdout, some of the stuff he did social media, some of the goofy illegal stuff with like people calling, asking about making trades, even though he didn't have representation, so it was like illegal for that to happen. So I don't, I got nothing bad to say about Roquan. He was a good player here. He's gone now. God bless him. I'm happy he's gone. I think it was a good move. But yeah, I agree. I don't know why everyone just instantly jumps in agreement with that just because it's a story that came out. I'd like to know the other side of it a little better, certainly. So I don't think that that's a red flag in my eyes, the way that, like you were talking about, that some people are treating it like it's this, big mark against them. So yeah, I think that that's sort of a non-story for me. The only other thing I will say about the one issue I do have with Poles, maybe this will lead into what Mike's about to talk about, is that Claypool trade looks worse and worse.
That's one of mine.
It looks worse by the minute. Claypool's like not even playing like 30% of the snaps. Like, it's just weird. They got to get him on the field, and that pick is looking better and better and better. As bad as Claypool looks, they obviously operate together, but that's the only thing that I don't like about what he's done to this point. Everything else, I'm pretty on board with.
Not to interrupt, like, so what is your guys' interpretation of why he's not seeing the field as much as we think he should be? Because I'm in agreement with that. I don't really have an interpretation of why it's going on, personally.
Jack, you go, and then I want to like kind of rant for a minute or two.
Yeah, that's fine. Who knows? It's obviously the coaches. It's similar to the Velus Jones situation. Obviously, whatever they're seeing in practice or not seeing in practice, for that matter, is putting them in a position where they don't think he should be part of the game plan for certain reasons. Obviously, the run game is a huge part of what we do, and they love certain guys in those run blocking schemes. But I, I just don't know how, if you're this new regime that comes in together, you need to be on the same page. You're bringing in a guy like that, trading away that kind of capital. I don't care if the coaches don't love him in practice. He's got to be on the field. That's why my biggest concern, large picture about the Bears right now, is the fact that um, there is no doubt in my mind that Poles got hired, and McClaskey and Phillips and Polian and the old guard had already said Eberflus is the coach. It's the same nonsense that came in with what's his name, with Ryan Pace, when they said John Fox is the guy. It's this exact same blueprint, and I think that they're just not on the same page, because the way things are going, it's apparent to me, and I refuse to believe that Poles actually picked them, regardless of what is said. And I hate to be negative on Eberflus. He's got a bad team, and I'm probably just kind of raining on the parade, but I cannot trust those Phillips and McClaskey with a lick of anything. So I guess kind of go ahead, Mike, with whatever you wanted to say.
Zach, anything real quick? I'm gonna go on a little tangent.
You're good to go. The only thing I want to say is after you're done, I'd like Jack to touch on the fact that we were sold on this Eberflus guy being a fucking defensive. I think the words being thrown on defensive guru.
Well, so on that real quick, how funny is it that Nagy was supposed to be this offensive guru and we're the worst offense in the NFL, and then this guy's supposed to be a defensive guru and we're the worst defense in the NFL? What the fuck? If you're really a guru, you'll work with shitty pieces. You know, like you'll make shitty pieces be competent. These guys are fucking frauds. But anyways, all right, here's my tangent. All right, you talked about Ryan Poles and my thoughts on him. So I think he nailed the the Robert Quinn trade. I think just getting him away, getting something back for him, even though our front seven's terrible. I mean, by the time we're any good, Robert Quinn was going to be retired, right? So getting anything for Robert Quinn was absolutely the right move. As far as Roquan goes, I think once again, Poles hit a home run. We're seeing that Sandborn is stepping into that role and he's getting 1 million tackles. All you do in that role is you tackle. No offense to Roquan, he's a okay player. Like, he's fast, he's good, he tackles great. You're not like a game-changing player. You're a nice piece on a good team. Now with Baltimore, I think that was a good trade for both teams. Okay,
it's just all I'm going to say quickly is it's just not a game-changing position.
No, it's like running back. You know, right. Like there's a bunch of guys that can fill that role, right? And Sandborn, undrafted rookie out of fucking Wisconsin, white guy, is stepping in. He's led the league in tackles since he's come in. I mean, the guy, in my opinion, has earned a really legitimate favorite shot at a starting job next year.
I agree.
The only thing I'll say is Roquan is, I think, objectively a far better player.
Roquan's better, but he was also the 8th overall pick or whatever it was. And Sandborn's undrafted. That's one of those positions, maybe like a tight end, like a running back, like a guard, where if you can find a guy that's a half a step slower and plug it there, you just kind of do it, you know, for cheaper. Right?
Yeah,
so
I agree. Yeah, it's more just the position than the player.
Absolutely. As far as the immaturity goes,
what are you drinking, Glenn?
I got some.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, some Teeling Irish whiskey tonight. So that's
interesting. Okay, I've been entertaining. Sorry to go off on a bird tangent. I've been entertaining So with American bourbon, it's all the fucking allocated bottles you can't find anymore. But like if you want to get like good Irish whiskey, you can get like Redbreast like 20, 21, 23, 25, and like you'll pay for them, but like they're in stock.
They're available.
I really like the red. I tried Redbreast 15 in the bar. I think that you like some Irish whiskey, and I've been entertaining going on like a 21 or 23 bottle or something like that. Trying out. Have you tried one of those bottles yet?
No, but what I'll say about Irish, which is great, is in my opinion, it's the tastiest. It's so friendly. It's vanilla forward. It's really one of those where if you just put a little ice and water in it, I mean, maybe if you're new to it, maybe you struggle with the first one, but then after that, I mean, it's just nice. Anyways, back to Roquan. Roquan is a good player. I liked him in a Bears uniform. He is immature. The first way to know that is I think he hits on like 18-year-old white chicks. Okay, so he's always a liability there. And then he's going to go not have an agent. Like Jack said, he's going to call up other teams, try to start some trade rumors, whatever else. That's a guy, he like has all the potential to be the greatest leader in a locker room with like, he shows up, he does his job. He's a rah-rah kind of guy a little bit without being over the top. But when you get him outside of the practice facility, I actually kind of worried about Roquan. I'm not mad to see him gone. So that's my little tangent on Roquan. Now, when it comes to polls,
wait a second.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you don't hit on 18-year-old white females?
Anyways, I plead the fifth. Anyways, Ryan Poles.
I'm gonna jump on that too, really quick too. So, you may have met her before, Mike, but me and Jack actually know a girl that got hit on by Roquan Smith in the bar scene.
I've heard this.
I'm not gonna drop any names.
I've heard this. I forget who it is, but it's somebody in the friend circle.
I forget who it is. I'm not gonna drop any names in this thing, but she was older, but I mean, still, like, he's in the bar scene, man, shooting his shots.
I don't know if you guys remember, there was rumors that like he was gonna get like arrested before the season. The guy's a liability. Like
he's dropping roofies and drinks left and right.
Yeah, he's a good player, and in a lot of ways he's not a liability. But he's got some things about him that I don't really love either. Now that being said, Ryan Poles, I like what you did with Roquan. I like what you did with Robert Quinn. I like your overall approach to the roster. I have two major concerns for you, sir. I have your very major concerns with your ability to spot and identify wide receivers for your team. Let's look no further than Chase Claypool, as Jack said, giving up a high second-round pick, which you knew would be a high second-round pick, for Chase Claypool. I think if you think he's better than that Johnston guy from TCU or just as good, I think you can justify it, but we need to see something happen there. The next place where I'm really worried about your ability to identify wide receivers, Velus Jones is a complete bust. The guy sucks. You might as well cut him now. Just move on. The guy blows. Third, the next reason I'm worried about your ability to identify a wide receiver, N'Keal Harry, when he's on, looks good. He never plays. What the fuck? It's like the Claypool situation, but 10 times worse. N'Keal Harry's had 6 plays this year. He's caught 3 touchdowns in 5 passes. I don't get it. I don't get why he's not on the field. I don't know if there's some kind of unspoken or spoken off the record agreement that, oh, we actually have something in Harry. Let's just not play him. Oh, we have something in Claypool. Let's not play him. But these dudes, in their limited playtime, look like the guys. Why is Equanimous St. Brown our best wide receiver right now? I don't get it. I don't get it. And he's a Notre Dame guy. I fucking love EQ. The next concern I have with Poles, and I think this is my biggest concern, even more than the wide receiver, I'm worried about his ability to identify D-line. That D-line that sucks right now, there's actually some guys he went out and got. And that scares me that he's going to do something, too cute or fancy in the draft, in free agency, and he's going to pay the wrong people. And that's my biggest fear, even though he values the D-line. Are they identifying the right guys? Because that Al-Quadin Muhammad sucks. Justin Jones sucks. I mean, everybody they brought in, which I know they weren't getting like a Khalil Mack or whatever, like a big name guy. But everybody they brought in, they're the worst players in NFL history. I don't get it. So I like what he did with Roquan and Quinn. I'm really concerned about his ability to identify receivers in D line. And I guess we'll see linebacker at some point. I'd argue maybe he does have some ability at linebacker, bringing in Sanborn, but who knows?
Yeah, I will say the only thing I could really comment on as far as the defensive signings go is just that they all are team friendly contracts, at
Fair.
least.
Fair.
I still think that we're in a situation where this roster is going to be entirely turned
Yeah.
over within, probably by the not maybe not next season, but going into 2024. I
I hope
think
I'm
this
still alive.
you'll be here, brother. But I just think that going by that year, this roster is going to be completely wiped out. It's what guys do. They come in. I think I heard something about Buffalo, since I don't know the guy's name who took over up there, but since he took over, I think there's like one person still on the roster since the day he took over, and it's like Josh Allen, which is like his like first draft pick or something bizarre like that. But like it's what these guys do, you know. People talk like Yurko talks about it all the time when he was in the league. He talks about how when he was in Green Bay and they got rid of all these guys who were like, all pro players and they went elsewhere, kind of like Roquan, excellent player, probably going to have success in Baltimore and wherever he ends up after that. But, they get rid of these players because they want to build the team the way they want to build it. You got to clear out the roster. And I think that's what Poles is in the process of doing. So yeah, I would be a lot more hesitant if a Jones was signed to like a
A
4 or
big deal.
5 year deal, like he's like, oh, this guy's the man. But he hasn't really gone, he hasn't gone over his skis, if you will. So I do like that, at least, even though it hasn't been good, it's been smart, if that makes sense. It hasn't been
Yeah,
risky, I guess maybe is a better way to put it.
it's been a little frugal or
Right.
conservative. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and the other thing that worries me too about that, though, in the same breath, is Eberflus has got to be in on these conversations. He's
Right.
got to be the one who's kind of like, hey, these are the types of defensive players that fit my
Yeah.
system, fit what
Yeah.
I like to do. And that just brings me back to my biggest concern of that, like Eberflus just isn't the guy, and we're kind of wasting maybe 2 years, 3 years, depending on how long they keep him around, of potentially, growing that team with Fields on that rookie contract. But I don't want to get too deep and dirty into it, but that is a worry of mine.
You
And then
can.
as far as the receivers go, though, well, I'll let you jump into it in a minute, Zach. And just you can kind of run with it, and we'll go from there. But just touching on the receivers, um, Valus Jones, I mean, unbelievably bad, just
Terrible.
just just horrid.
Put me in
Um,
pads.
I mean, I'll venture to say he won't. He's probably not going to be on the roster next year.
I've heard that he'll for sure be back next year, but
Have they said that?
well,
Okay,
not
maybe they.
not them, but like people that talk about it, they're like he'll be back. Like he'll have a spot for at least another year. Yeah.
Maybe they give him another chance. I
Yeah.
mean, he was a third pick. I mean, I would hope.
Right.
I'm just saying we've seen crazier things, but yeah, the N'Keal Harry thing, and we talked about it before too. He catches that deep pass out of nowhere, just beautiful throw, one
Yeah.
of Fields' better ones against Green Bay. Uh,
He's
makes a
okay.
makes a great catch, and he's just he doesn't play the rest of the game.
It's so weird.
Either he's made of glass and he's just can't
No.
stay on the field, or like you've kind of joked about, like if the Bears are trying to win, like maybe they're just not trying to, because a lot of these moves are so nonsensical. It's really hard to find a rhyme or reason as to why N'Keal Harry, who's an excellent pass blocker as well, which is a lot of the rumors about why the Bears even went and got him in the first place, and Chase Claypool, this guy they traded away this massive capital for, can't even find themselves on the field. Two, you design a wide receiver in a lab, it's Chase Claypool and N'Keal Harry.
Yep.
And we can't even find these guys on the field, out on the perimeter, giving them opportunities to do their thing. Hopefully, out of the bye, that changes. But I agree with your grievances against polls. I think are not heavy. It sounds like you're still mostly hopeful, but I think the little concerns you do have are certainly valid, much more so than a story about whether or not, he said, she said in a conversation that happened when a guy took over as GM and then negotiations changed the way you felt about each other.
The only thing I was going to add to your comments about the defensive line and are these Eberflus's guys, whatever. I don't know if they're Eberflus's guys, Poles guys. I don't really care. Like, we're last in everything. I get being frugal, but like, be frugal and be 20th. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing that worries me is we're so bad. Like, I don't think it takes a genius to be 20th. You know, that's my whole thing. Zach, anything?
I'm going to start a little segment here where we each give two things we're positive about the Bears in the last few months, and none of them can be about Justin Fields. It's got to be positive things about them. I'm going to start number one.
Wait, Zach, before you do number one, real quickly, just to kind of wrap up the Eberflus piece, and which is why I do wonder if they're kind of just all in on the tank after the way things started. To be fair, as negative as I've skewed towards him in this segment, if you will, the start of the year, our second half adjustments were outstanding. No one scored in the second half. I get that we traded away Robert Quinn and Roquan. We made some moves that kind of were a detriment to the talent we had on that side of the ball. But our second half defenses were outstanding. We were able to make adjustments at halftime. He's not calling the defense from what I understand. It's hard to really know what's going on in those situations, but maybe it's more of, a problem with the DC. But I will give him credit in the sense that there was that glimmer of the Bears were the best second half defense with pretty limited talent for, the first quarter of the season. So I do think it's only fair to acknowledge that aspect as well, as much negative as I've said about it.
That's fair, dude. That feels like so long ago, though, doesn't it?
Forever
It feels
forever ago.
A long time ago.
All right, Zach, let's go into your segment. Let's go.
We're going to do two things we're happy about with the Bears. It can be news or just anything. I'm going to go number one. We've been linked very heavily to Orlando Brown Jr., offensive tackle from the Chiefs, 26 years old. Bears are being heavily linked to him right now, and I think he'd be a great addition to the team. I don't know if we're end up with him. I think just the fact that we're being linked to him and looking to improve the offensive line by some people that are talking to people in the league more than me. I'm not talking to anyone at all, so, I'm just hearing the reports that I'm fucking seeing on the internet. So, just to see that out there, it's a promising for the Bears, I think. And at number two, I'm going to go with we've had a couple guys in secondary step up recently. I'm going to shout out DeAndre Houston Carson recently. He's been coming in, starting for a couple guys in a weak secondary, playing strong and free safety, depending on where they need him at. And I'd say that he's a 6 or 7 year vet in the league on a minimum contract right now. He's just a good addition to the team, special teams force, and just to see him develop, and hopefully, I know that he's getting old in his career, but maybe in years 8, 9, and 10, when the Bears are hopefully contending for a title, I see him staying here for the next few years, and he can be a veteran voice in the locker room for some young rookies that I think we're going to be drafting in the next couple of drafts, and as we're assembling our defense. Those are my two things that I like about the Bears moving forward, just 2 key points. No Fields stuff. So, you guys are next.
You go ahead, Mike.
All right. All right. So the 2 things I like about the Bears going forward, is that essentially what it is? The rest of the season?
I think it's
anything positive you see about the Bears moving forward.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I thought it was more so like this season, like the
okay.
positives you've
Either
noticed,
way,
or no?
minor
Future
kind of
anything
yeah,
positive.
mine are gonna kind of be along both lines. So, first thing is I think we have two young building blocks on the offensive line, which is encouraging to me. I think that Tevin Jenkins, who according to Pro Football Focus, which I know is like real, hit or miss site in people's opinions, but in my opinion, I think they do a pretty good job of breaking down player performance. Um, Tevin Jenkins is like the fourth best offensive guard in the NFL according to that site. I think that you keep him at guard, and I think that he could be a really steady guy for the next 4 or 5 years. Obviously, with big guys, you worry about super long longevity, but you hope you get 3, 4, 5 years out of the guy, and I think he could be really solid. I also think Braxton Jones is a building block on the offensive line. Right now, he's like 15th in terms of tackles, which is kind of crazy for a fifth-round drafted rookie. I think he's probably long-term a right tackle rather than a left, but I think that he's a guy that can absolutely be a piece on this line moving forward. Um, Other thing encouraged about on this team, outside of Justin Fields and outside of those couple pieces on the offensive line, I'd say I thought that Jaquan Briskers had a great season. I think he's a real deal at safety. I think that's important that he was able to have that season this year too, especially considering Eddie Jackson has a terrible injury that kind of makes me question his future going forward. I think there's a real likelihood he's not on the roster next year. I think there's a real likelihood Cody Whitehair is gone next year too. So I think that even though right now those look like two guys that are decent players on the Bears, I think they might be gone next year and we'd be looking for replacements. So to have some building blocks around them, I think is a positive sign. So those are my two. I would say reflecting on performance this year, looking forward to the future. Those are two things I'm excited about. One last one just to add in. Hopefully it doesn't overlap anything to Jack. I think Cole Kmet has become a safety net for Justin Fields. That was one of your things. I'm sorry. Jack, go ahead. Jack, go ahead.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah, I would just I agree with your little shout out to Eddie Jackson before I jump into mine too. He came back this year, took a lot of criticism, well-deserved criticism,
Yeah.
but he kind of found his form as that ball hawking type player, made a lot of big plays, and what else has been a rather lackluster defense. So shout out Eddie Jackson, shout out Khalil Herbert before his injury. More so just proving, you know, hey, I'm going to shout him out, but kind of devalue him. Just proving that you don't have to pay Montgomery. You don't have to pay any running back. You don't have to draft any running back high. You just got to get guys in there. And, as cutthroat as it is, you just got to use them up and move on to the next guy. That's just what that position is these days. So shout out to those two guys, both stellar years before the injury. And Khalil Herbert should be the top back next year. Excited to see how he looks in that role.
Not to interrupt you, but does anyone know? I don't know any of the details. What his injury is and his timetable and is it bad? Anyone before you continue? Does anyone know about Khalil Herbert?
Eddie Jackson or Khalil Herbert?
Khalil Herbert is injury right now, and like what his timetable is and stuff like that. I haven't looked at it at all.
So when it first came out, there were some rumblings that he could potentially be back by the end of the season. I would imagine they're not going to run that risk at this point, but I don't think it's anything serious enough that would some surgery situation that would impact the start of like training camp. I think he'll be 100% full go by then. Eddie Jackson's, I think, is a little more serious and a little more unpredictable about how you're going to bounce back from something like that. And like Mike was saying, just due to the way the money works out, there's a good chance the Bears make the business decision to kind of, cut ties with him. But my two things from this year and then kind of looking forward, I guess, sticking with your theme. One is Cole Kmet. He's the biggest one for me. I every time I make this comment, I hate to even include Mahomes in it because he's so different and Kelsey is so different.
Yeah.
He's so much better than these guys, but it's those mobile quarterbacks with their tight ends. It matters so much, as Mike was starting to touch on before he realized it was going to be my talking point. Um, Having those safety nets is just massive. Mahomes to Kelsey is big. Then you look at the guys who are much more directly comparable. I'm not even going to put Fields in the conversation with the other guy, but Jalen Hurts, he's out there with Goddard. Big part of his success. I know he's been hurt. Look at Lamar Jackson, what he does when Mark Andrews is on the field versus when Mark Andrews is not on the field. I think it just makes a massive difference. Even Dak Prescott with Dalton Schultz, he feeds him all the time. I think that Cole Kmet has proven he can be that guy and has taken massive, massive strides in these past 5, 6, 7 weeks. And he's just stellar in the run game. He really
Yeah.
is one of the best, if not the best, in the league. And that's what people don't realize about uh, you know guys who are probably a little more football guys, if you will. When they talk about tight ends, people still give the edge to Gronkowski over Kelsey, over Tony Gonzalez, over all these other guys, not just because of the Super Bowls, but because of what he did in the run game.
Yeah.
He did stuff that those other guys are just they don't do. They're not necessarily capable of. It's kind of like Kittle's kind of like that too. Um, they do these things in the pass game, which is what everyone notices. But Komet's one of those guys who does the stuff that no one's ever going to talk about or notice. That makes a drastic difference for your football team, and I love what I've seen out of him this year. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, two things. When it comes to Komet, uh, he's never going to be Kelsey, right? He's gonna. I
No,
think.
no
I,
one
I
is.
think. I think your all-time ideal situation for him is he's Jason Witten, and I don't think that's unrealistic. Komet's still super young. I mean, just a ultimate safety net, blocker in the run game. Hopefully, develops into a leader in the locker room. I think that's like your hope for Komet. Does he develop in that? It's maybe a long shot, but he's not the Kelsey build. He's more of a Kyle Rudolph, Jason Witten build. Real quick to circle back to Khalil Herbert. So it was a hip injury, Zach, and he is expected to be back at practice next week.
Okay. All right.
So that's as of 2 days ago. So that's the expectation there.
Have you guys heard reports about before Jack goes
Yeah.
about Montgomery just for sure not being back next year and being traded?
No,
Well,
but
he's
I'd
just a
assume he's
free.
gone.
He's
Or
not under
yeah,
contract. They're just not going to
he's
sign him.
gone, right? Not re-signing.
I
Well,
mean, they
they might,
could, but
they
yeah,
might, yeah. But anyway, that's a good segue actually because it brings me into
Nice.
what I sort of like as far as like the looking forward about the team is that it's the cap space moving forward.
I
The
like that.
Bears have it's not they have the most, but they have the most by like an insane amount. The Bears have more than double the cap space of the team that has the second most cap space. It's just like it's just an astronomical difference. And the NFL is a league unlike any other. It's a league full of mercenaries. These guys are going to take the money where they can get it. It's not the NBA where I'm only going to take the money if I can bring my friends. I'm only going to take the money if you are able to go out and get this guy too. I'm only going to take the money if we're competing. It's, oh, you're going to give me the most money. Okay, I'm going to go play for your team. That's football is, it's such a short shelf life. These guys know I mean, any sport, realistically, at any moment, boom, you're done. But football more than anything else. And, I think the average career is what, just over 3 years, if that. These guys know they have a limited window to get their money. They're going to take it where they can. Poles needs to spend wisely. I feel great about being in that position. Uncharted waters. Poles is unproven, but I have nothing. negative against him at this point in time, and I'm just going to trust that he can go out and get it done. And I love the fact that we're in the position where we have the capital to do so.
All right, real quick,
Love that.
rapid
Love that.
fire closing thoughts. I don't want to go more than like 5 minutes just to play with this timing here on the meeting thing. Kodo, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Thanks for having me again tonight,
Of
gentlemen.
course.
I'm appreciative of being on your guys' little show here. I'm hopeful that over the years this becomes a staple in Chicago sports world. Got a lot of chowder heads out there right now in Chicago sports, and this could be a nice little segment getting some real people. Um, and as far as thoughts goes, I'm very hopeful about the Bears' future. I want to win a couple football games in these Final Four games. Got a very tough. I don't know if any team in football has a harder last four
They
games than the
don't.
Bears,
We
honestly.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's a
have
tough.
they have the
Um,
toughest.
so I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get any wins, but I'd want to get a couple. Show this team how to win some football games.
If you could
And
only win, if you could only win one game down the stretch, which one are you taking?
I'm taking Christmas Eve on against the Bills at home. I'll be at the game. I got some chowderhead friend that's trying to bring some fucking hibachi grill to the game, and he's gonna be trying to grill up some steaks and stuff. I think Jack Burchett's actually gonna be at that game with me, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
hell
I
yeah!
don't know for sure.
It's
On
it's
Christmas Eve.
possible.
So I want to get a win on Christmas Eve. There's gonna be some Santa hats out in the crowd. It's gonna be a nice little. I don't know if the Bears have played on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or anything close to Christmas in a long time. And it's gonna be a special moment. I'm looking forward to getting to the stadium early and just join some refreshments on Christmas Eve. And so I hope the Bears get a win that day. And so I'm gonna shoot the game over in the fast forward session, Glenn. There you go, baby.
Right
I
on.
want the win on Christmas Eve though, baby. That's what it is.
Okay.
Fuck the Bills.
Right on. Hey, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. You're
Yeah.
a welcome guest anytime. We were able to really get into some good discussion and banter tonight. Jack, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no. Hopefully, we make the Bohemian sharp, just the regular. Get them part of the crew on a consistent basis. Would love it.
I'm in. I'm in.
And as far as me, I'm actually going to answer your question about the if I could have any win on the Bears' schedule the rest of the season. It's going to be the win. I want them to win against the Detroit Lions. I just want them to bend that team over on draft day and get both their first round picks. I hope they lose to them during the regular season, but on draft day, when the Bears lose out the rest of the way, I want to beat the Detroit Lions to high hell, just smack them out of the park. Everyone's like, "Oh, Detroit's a real team now. They've done so good about building this up patiently." No, Detroit is nothing. They're dirt. They're less than dirt. They're never going to be anything. We're going to fleece them on draft day. We're going to get both their first round draft picks, and they're going to go right back where they came from.
All right, so Jack's looking forward to draft day. So I'd love to hear that from him.
Yeah, no, but banter aside, I know Zach was saying, we're not allowed to talk about Justin Fields. That's all that matters these last couple weeks. I want to see Brisker and Gordon how they do against these better teams, and some of those other guys you mentioned. I'm not as high on Sanborn as you seem to be, but I want some of these defensive guys to prove that they should have a spot on the roster. We got to fill a roster. We're going to need backups. All these defensive lines that are good, it's because they run 9, 10 guys in and out of that defensive line. So we need depth. We need pieces out there. Hopefully some guys can step up, take advantage of their opportunities, prove themselves a little bit down the stretch here. And then, I got to see Fields throw the ball. His best game was against the Packers by far, in my opinion, as far as what he was able to do with his arm. Hope he keeps building on that. Maybe this injury is sort of the best thing for him, make him a little bit scared to get out and run more than he needs to. Just kind of keep throwing the ball, keep letting it rip, and hopefully keep progressing in that department because that's the ticket, man.
Right on. Well, thanks to both you guys. If I had to pick a game that the Bears are going to win the rest of the way, I think I want them to beat the Vikings. Beat the Vikings. Beat the division winner. it'll win that way. But thanks, guys. Thanks to all the viewers out there. If you're new here, like and subscribe. This is part 2 of a long-winded video, but we're just a couple guys out here chopping it up. So, as always, bear down. Jack, hit him with it.
Bears.
Bears. Bear down. Peace.